Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. This spring has been a bit of a trial for most gardeners. We've had a dry spring with high temperatures, low temperatures. We've even had frost, and occasionally we've had all of that in 1 week. Now, this past weekend, when I thought, it might just be a good weekend to finally get warmed up and, of course, plant, what did we get? Well, I don't know about you, but I got 3 inches of rain in 1 day, and that made for an unpleasant gardening day, but it also made it more difficult to garden and to plant and to do containers. But the ones that were planted that have done well seem to do quite well in the garden despite the heavy rainfall and high winds. So let's talk about those that have done. The PC, tomatoes, and peppers in my garden, let's just be honest, even with the rain and everything else, we have been hand watering, of course, when the drought was there, but they have done very, very well. Stood up to all of that. That means they're well-grown, strong stemmed, etc. Still with flowers, still with fruit. In fact, the tomatoes are doing quite well. And several varieties have fruit and sizable fruit already. Now, when I say sizable, it doesn't mean they're going to be ripening this coming week or anything. It just means that the tomatoes are green and actually showing and sizing up. That's a good sign for the weather we've been having. Normally, we get away with planting around the 10th of May. This year, it was difficult to plant even on the May weekend, which would have been around the 18th. So we have done and found that we went and did it on the 21st, and yet they still are doing well. The kalanchoes that I planted in the ground are doing spectacular. They're showing fabulous color. They're standing up not only to all of the wind, the sun, the drought, though they are being hand watered, but they're also stood up to 3 inches of rain that day and the wind, and still in full bloom, full color, and doing very, very well. Same thing happened with all of the heucheras that I planted from PC. They all stood up very, very well. And I want you to know that that's a good indication of good, strong, well-grown plants. So get out to the garden centers, pick them up, and start planting. Now, let's hope we don't get more of that type of weather, but we get more of a consistent weather. Now, for the last couple of days, we've had cool but warmer weather. It's a little drier. And a lot of the plants in our garden that are established are doing very, very well. They're starting to size up. The lawn is starting to respond and recover, actually, from the drought that we were having. So if you didn't water and you didn't give your turf grass an inch of rain in the last couple of weeks, then you were putting your turf under stress. Well, suddenly, with all the rain, 3 inches, they have started to grow. The cooler temperatures, the grasses love that, at least the turf grasses do. And they are, with the fertilizer that you do have on there already, I'm sure, showing great bounce back from all of the drought that we've been having. Little Tough Stuff was a great plant and hydrangea that did very well this winter, came over very well this winter, and is starting to bud up very nicely. Of all the hydrangeas in my garden, that and the big lace cap was actually the best of the hydrangeas that came through the winter. So I think you'll find that it'll be some inconsistencies where Edith Bogue, my evergreen southern magnolias, suffered very badly. Watering, feeding has helped, and they are starting to recover, but they practically completely defoliated. As a result, they are starting to leaf out, but they're showing great stress. They aren't exactly what you would call thick, lush, and bushy. In fact, they still look like they're dead, but they are starting to break leaf at the tips and on some of the more farther down, stronger branches. So we'll see what happens with those. In the garden themselves, I think you'll find that if you continue to do small little jobs, keep working ahead, to keep up on your mulching, keep up on your planting, you will do quite well. Containers. One thing with all the rain, if you do get rain like that, if they're not well drained, make sure that you dump them out. Now that means just tip them over. Make sure you support the soil on the top and the plants because they're not that well established yet. And tip out any excess moisture. This will be important that you do not get root rot and set the plant back or even allow it to rot and die. Remember, the roots that actually feed a plant are the thickness of your hair, so they're very susceptible to both drought and to excess moisture. So that's some of the things that you should be looking at. Now, if you're looking for a splash of color, one of the plants that are actually a group of plants that have done well, I haven't planted them yet, they're simply sitting in the tray out there, is the Rex begonias. Now, why all of a sudden is a Rex begonia doing so well? Well, maybe it's the cool, consistent moisture. I'm not sure. But they're doing really well. Now, these are shade plants for the garden. They're going to add tremendous color to any shady area. The one that is new for this year at PC is the Shadow King Cool White. Now, this plant probably should not be planted by itself. There's a reason. This plant has got this shadowy white on the leaves. And as begonia, we think of this sort of grayish white as being mildew. So we'll be a little taken back when we find out that that is actually its natural color. So use it as a contrast to the reds and the pinks in the Rex begonias. Whether you do them as a container, contrasting all three, or any of the combination thereof. Or even if you want to live dangerously, fool people, put them into a garden by themselves or in a container by themselves, and they'll think, oh boy, that plant's not too healthy, where in point of fact, it's probably as healthy as any of the other Rex begonias. So it is cool, it's different, but you may have this aversion to it because you think that it looks like mildew. Personally, I love it. I think it's a great plant to contrast all the others, and it looks fabulous when planted with unstoppable fire, with its dark foliage, and, of course, the orange flowers. So, you've got two begonias and one color contrast with the other. Dark foliage, the cool silvery white grayish foliage, and of course the bright orange flowers on the unstoppable fire. So go for it. Be a little courageous, be a little daring, and mix them all up. If you're looking for a plant that you want as a hanging basket for shade or even just a eastern exposure, take a look at the Boston ferns. Now, the Boston ferns which are, let's say, notorious for dropping all their old leaflets yellow. This one that they are growing is probably one of the best. It is tissue cultured. It does resist all that shedding that you're so used to. So if you can keep it moist and out of direct sun, and you should have a great success with this particular Boston fern. And of course, it makes a houseplant come fall. The yellow hibiscus is newer this year, this variety. This is sunny yellow. And Fiesta was the color last year. It was sort of a corally orange with a bright yellow edge on each of the petals. Very, very pretty. This sunny yellow hibiscus, these are tropical, so they're not hardy, comes in a tree form or in a bush form, and they're bright yellow, and they've got this deep, large, raspberry red throat, and that makes a nice contrast. Of course, they're going to brighten up any corner, and it's just going to be used in the garden as an accent to draw your eye. So don't necessarily put this right up front. Put this a little farther away from where you sit so that it draws your eye away from the immediate area, making your yard look longer, deeper, and make people look farther down. As a specimen plant, it will just knock your socks off. If you want something that's a little more annual and a little more different, and you want to probably put it in a container at a doorway, the Eugenia. Now, this one is not hardy, but it's done nicely either in a ball form or in a spiral as a topiary. Sink it into pots. You might be able to winter it in the house in a cool, sunny location. When I say cool, I do mean cool. This is an evergreen that does not like our very dry, hot houses in the winter. But then neither do we, right? So if you can mist it, if you can give them those conditions and overwinter it for next year, and you'll find you might even have to trim it to keep it nice and neat. Some great plants from PC, and I want you to get out there this coming weekend, stock up, and start planting. You may not get all your planting done. I know I'm not finished mine, but I do think that if I get the selection, start using the combinations, start being inventive, this will add interest to my garden. And as an old, jaded gardener, that's hard to do. So get out to PC Garden Centers and plant this coming weekend. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.